we held a number of open days and also attended Science Week events down here, and we did a whole lot of things. Some of them worked, some of them didn't work. And so what this talk is about is really, I'm presenting a whole bunch of ideas for you to take back to your clubs to promote amateur radio. They may or may not work for you, but please, please, please have a think about it. Now, okay, rating. Definitely recommended for those who are having trouble sleeping. So you can go to sleep at about this point. So COVID was great for the hobby, wasn't it? Right. Many organisations presented that they saw a huge increase. Lots of preppers all doing their amateur radio licence because they thought the world was going to end. All this sort of stuff. So, but one of the things it did do was lots of amateurs actually got back in the shack, which is fantastic. What it gave us then the opportunity to think about was, how do we improve the image of amateur radio? And so we just at the end of 2020 held a open day. Before COVID hit, we actually attended the Festival of Bright Ideas, which is a Science Week event that happens down here. Lots and lots of science organisations all get together. On the Friday, we have a schools day. And every 15 minutes, you've got a bunch of students in front of you for the whole day. And you've got to entertain them for 15 minutes about whatever your subject is. Bit of a challenge. You come out of the end of that going, oh my God. But then there's a public day, the day after that. And so people can come along. We're up on the Queen's Domain, as many of you know who came along to the barbecue. It's a well-known location, not open very often. So we encourage people to come along. And we're also in cahoots with Tas Maritime Radio. Now, the aim of these open days was to put amateur radio in front of a much wider community. This was not for amateurs, this was for the public. And trying to dispel a few of those old grey, and hey, I'm grey, I've lost my hair, I fit the case. And I actually operate, my shack is in near enough to a cellar. So we actually resisted having a car boot sale as part of the open day. And can I just say, some were disappointed. So just word of warning. And it was not about amateurs. It was about showcasing it to the public. So what we had to do, we had to capitalise on the gee whiz factor. And we learnt this from Festival of Bright Ideas. You've got to appeal to kids, which is exactly what Steve was talking about. So you've got to put stuff that, number one, they relate to, and number two, it's got a bit of a, ooh, okay, that's pretty cool. So you have to think in a slightly different terms. Think about putting your enthusiastic young amateurs who've just got their license, who are really keyed up about this, put them in front of people. You know, they show the passion for the hobby. So this presentation is all about giving you ideas. Now, you still awake? Okay. I'm not hearing snoring, so I must be doing okay. Think outside the square. So think about the stuff that's going on in your city, in your region, in your place. External events may be available that you can attend. Things like, and maker spaces, hacker spaces. The expo tomorrow, you'll see Hobart Hackerspace. They have a stand, and we've got some great linkages with Hobart Hackerspace. In fact, they've got 3 or 4 people who have got their license just recently. The National Science Week, and National Science Week is delivered differently in each state. So you've got to link in with who your National Science Week organisers are. It's usually, like down here, it's UTAS. UTAS do all of the organisation, so you link in with those people, get on their mailing lists, find out what they're doing. National Field Days. Now, we haven't had one of them for a little while, and in fact, I've got a photo of the last one. We went to JCAR and set up outside the front of JCAR. VHF, UHF Field Days. Invite people along. In fact, David was up on Mount Wellington with his 122 gig in, I think, about the same place that Richard and Murray are normally. And they get lots of people driving past and going, what the? Because there's these big antennas and everything sitting next to the van, and people stop and ask what's going on. ILLW contests. I know some clubs get on the list, and it's a long waiting list for Bunnings, the sausage sizzles, and actually setting up a station. This is FOBI. So this is Festival of Bright Ideas. And in fact, this is Sean, wherever Sean is. Satellite receiving station. We were receiving weather satellites. That was really popular. There's JCAR. There's the field day van up on top of Mount Wellington. Very impressive field day arrangement. Think about what your club does well. Where are those people that have got passion for particular things, and capitalise on them? Get them to show that passion at field days or other events. It's all about linking it to the standard stuff, like you've got one of these transmitters in your kitchen that heats up your food, and they sort of look at you strange, and you go, the microwave. Now that's a really high power transmitter. And they go, okay. Do you realise your mobile phone probably has 5 transceivers in it? Actually 5 radios in it to do different things. Well, it's linking it back to, because RF technology these days is all pervasive. It's everywhere. In fact, we almost couldn't live our lives without it, or maybe I'm being a bit dramatic there, but anyway. So that's the sort of stuff you've got to link back to. We are happy to share any of what you see. Just please come and see us. So this is some ideas. Earth Moon Earth it's got probably the strongest gee whiz factor of any of this stuff. When you're sitting there looking at this dish and you're saying to somebody, do you realise that's taking 2.6 seconds to go up to the moon, get reflected back off the moon and come back to us? And you sort of go, oh, okay. And I know when we had, here's some examples. This is Richard's very impressive 1.8 metre portable dish that we had at a field day, and the gee whiz factor was off the scale. We've got Rex's 1296 moon bounce arrangement. Rex and I had the privilege, and it was an absolute privilege, to use that dish, the big one, for a day when they celebrated the Echoes of Apollo commemoration, 40-year commemoration. And this actually, this kid here is Warren's son, who I think's about 20 by now. So that's how long ago it was. And there were messages coming via the moon to these kids, and we were letting, actually I think it was Doug, was it Doug? 3UM, bless his heart, was sending messages via the moon. So real gee whiz factor. Wi-Fi. Okay, this is linking it back to the ordinary. I'll go to the picture here. At FOBI, we had a couple of terminals set up using LIPD modules, and in fact this was Sean as well. LIPD modules, a Raspberry Pi, they were 2 terminals on one side of the room and the other, and kids, and you can see that's some of what kids were doing. They were, as soon as they realised that they were connected and they could talk to each other, well, they were off. The other thing we had set up was an RTO SDR, and I took out my key fob and I pushed the button and something came up on the RTL SDR, and people could actually see that there was something coming out of here. So it was that visual effect. Talking over light, we took along lots of optical communications devices. Some of them we came up with, the club had a club project of an optical transceiver. Happy to share that design. In fact, Mike Groth, MJ, who's here, wherever he is, might have had to go. Mike Groth designed the, there he is. Mike Groth designed the transceiver, the optical transceiver. We built them into boxes and kids could talk to each other. One of the learnings from that, though, was we actually put a microphone, a real microphone on the end of it, because kids didn't know that they had to talk into the top of the box. So we gave them a microphone. Perfect. Pick up the microphone, start talking. And you say, that's over light, and you get someone to stand between the two units, and it all stops. So lots of experimentation, some great gee whiz factors in there. Morse code is dead. Well, certainly isn't. And in fact, these little units we came up with, these are little Arduino units that decoder. They're available on GitHub, very easy to set up. These at Fobi and also at the Open Days were probably, and Jota, just recently Jota, were the absolute most popular thing. Kids would sit there and they would go, I'm going to write my name, I'm going to write my name, I'm going to write my name. About half an hour later, they'd write their name, but they persisted and they did that. So fantastic example. There are no foxes in Tasmania, or are there? It's a bit of an in-house joke. The government spent an awful lot of money on finding out whether there were or not, but I won't go into that. So it is a great practical demonstration. There are microfoxes available on the internet. That's a little film container, 35mm film container. Whoever remembers 35mm film containers? Little transmitter, 2 meters. You can program it up using USB. And we had a number, including Jota and a few other events where, and the Queen's Domain lends it to this sort of stuff. You know, trying to find a fox on the top of the Queen's Domain. So now, picking the right people. Those people who are really passionate about their hobby, their pursuit, their bit of the hobby. We had presentations going on big screens, which just scrolled through. We had Linda with the Alara interview. We had a whole lot of stuff around what Reese was doing in amateur radio. There was a whole lot of stuff around what Weiss and Taz was doing, because they do horsey events and a whole lot of other things. And of course, SOTA lends itself, because the pictures you usually take when you're on top of a mountain have a wow factor. In fact, you probably do SOTA not for radio, you do SOTA because you can go on top of mountains and have a 360-degree view of Tasmania. Now, still awake? That's what I have in my kitchen. So this is about microwave communication. A lot of these things don't mean anything to anybody. When they walk in, they go, oh, what's this about? You know, microwaves, that's what I've got in my kitchen. Well, show them. We have some 5.7 gig. These are AV modules. These are actually, I think, highly illegal AV modules, because they put out about a watt. So just don't tell the ACMA. But they're in amateur frequencies. So, came up with some boxes. You'll see one of these actually tomorrow, because we're going to try it with the 905. Just remind you that the 905 is being debuted in VK tomorrow. And thanks to Hero, if he's still about. Yes, up the back. So say hello to Hero if you see him, the ICOM engineer. These 5.7 gig, but these have got screens and microphones and cameras on them. So kids can talk to each other, see each other. Lots of displays. This one here is one of Rex's very impressive 10 gig setups, so people can see what it's all about. Getting out and about, portable radio. This is the Wyson side of it. So radio, 4-wheel drive, what could be better? I love it. And demonstrates that portable, that emergency readiness. What appeals to the preppers and what gets them wanting licenses. So fantastic. This is part of the Open Day presentations, and we do horsey events. If you're really into horses and radio, well, you're in heaven. The Preppers Toolkit. So satellite communication, we had a number of things which were related to weather satellites. At the Open Days, they were receiving weather pictures throughout the day. There was also lots of things around, do you realise that there is an amateur station on the International Space Station, at the ARIS program, and receiving SSTV pictures, etc. So lots of satellite antennas are sort of, there's a bit of a gee whiz factor with satellite antennas, because you look at this antenna and go, wow, what's going on here? So yeah. Slow scan television. Now Steve, who is here somewhere, Steve OO, came up with a great little idea. This is this is slow scan television arrangement, which is transmitting and receiving via a little optocoupler. So you get a perfect picture every time, but it's actually transmitting and receiving on slow scan, and it sits there and you can get it to loop through. The ARIS program that just recently did, there was a series on women in space, and these are some of the pictures that were coming down from the ISS. Now, we had a food stand set up, which I think there's a slide right at the end about that. But right next to the food stand, our expert in ADSB was actually our barista at the time, and he had the ADSB decoding next to him, as well as a radio on airband. So we were hearing the planes coming and going. And so whilst he was making them coffee, he was explaining what ADSB was all about. And also the air traffic that we were hearing on the radio. So the cool aviation link there is the gee whiz factor. Going portable, SOTA. I'll just remind people in VK7, we've got 695 at this point in time, 695 VK7 summits that you can do. If you're into bushwalking, we heard Adam talk about all of these fantastically small little radios that he takes QRP SOTAing and going portable. So, so that's why you go SOTAing. Because you can stand on top of a mountain and have a 360-degree view. In fact, that's Mount Saddleback up in the northeast. So yeah, and just have fun. And I've had a lot of fun with my son, who looks terribly young there, who is now 20 and going to uni. So, and SOTA's not really on his agenda right at the moment. So, okay. Women on the air. Now, I'm going to say something very controversial here about the gee whiz factor. Women can do it as easily as men, so we've just got to get over it. And Alara, there was some fantastic, and in fact, this slide shows it. This couple here, and I think I've got this right, Linda. They lived on a yacht. They lived on a yacht. So they were living on a yacht at the time. They both ended up getting their foundation license from the Open Day. So fantastic outcome. And they wanted to use a bit more than just marine HF radio. So, hey, they went all out, and the next foundation course we did, and we assessed them, and they both passed. HF comms, HF communication. Have your station set up. We had it set up at the Open Days, and it was decoding FT8. It was also showing using Grid Tracker. If you don't know about that program, please look it up. Because and in fact, Hayden's done a Ham Radio DX segment on Grid Tracker. So have a look at Ham Radio DX. Grid Tracker just shows you what it's hearing and where it is in the world. And where it is in the world is the gee whiz factor. Television. We had Peter talk about television. So this is radio with pictures. So yeah, and people love seeing themselves on the big screen. So sit them down at the desk, they can see themselves on the big screen. It's just, and if you've got a chroma key screen, this is for those who don't know, this is the OTC ATV studio. Put something up on the back so that they're on a tropical island or something, and go from there. Okay. Getting your license, easy peasy. Always have foundation license manuals available. Always have your assessor, educator available to talk to people, and sell it. We do a course. It is from 9 until probably 2 in the afternoon, where you can come along and you can get your foundation license. That's how we've structured it. And we are doing somewhere between probably 2 and 4 assessments every 2 months. And we've just done a whole lot of scouts, actually, down the Huon and Cygnet. So they have a very strong group in Huonville who have a radio troupe, and they get their license, they get their badge. They actually, even the scout group supplies them with a radio, handheld radio. Okay, on the home straight. Keep it simple. Label everything up. Have prepared playlists. So when people give them the key messages that you want to actually get across. So it just helps people make that connection, not get too technical. Don't dive into the technical, because people will just glaze over and go, oh my God, this is too hard. So really simple messaging, link it back to real world things. That's probably the key principles. And you can see this was the Open Day setup. Before we let people in, lots of labels, lots of things to look at, lots of colour and movement, lots of things going on. And you just wander around, and if people have got questions, you then do that. Promote the hell out of the event. Lots of stuff. Get in contact with your local ABC radio, your commercial radio, your other clubs, get them along. Focus on practical, hands-on activities like the fox hunting. Facebook is your friend. I find that very hard to actually say, but Facebook is your friend. We did pay to target local audiences, and we spent money, not a lot of money, but you can pay, and it paid off. 60 event responses, 3,000 in the first, greater than 80 event responses and it hit 4,000 people in the local area. Interesting demographic though, 34 to 54-year-olds really need to focus on balancing the women and the men. It seems to be all very balanced, and if I look out in the audience, that's probably reflective. Interesting, many young couples came along, families and young people, which was good. And again, put those people who are passionate in front of people. Alara had a great success on that day, on those open days. Added lots and lots of people who went on to actually do their assessments. So really good. Food attracts people. I think last night was evidence of that. So the sausage sizzle sold out. Tony, who's our person out on coffee today, makes absolutely delicious Greek desserts, which are to die for. So yeah, tummy says yummy. And that's the food stand. If you need more information about any of that, anything, please come and have a bit of a chat. It's a lot about seeking out who has the passion in your club and getting them in front of people.
Yeah, not really a question, but we just had Jota, as you know, and we're finding up in Launceston, the fox hunting is very popular with young children. Our twist on it is to have the foxes in stuffed animals.
I love it.
Again, using the same sort of arrows. Morse code was apparently very popular. Our system wasn't quite as high tech as yours, but we had the keyboard that you type on the keyboard and the Morse code tones come out. And the those plug-in electronic kits that were mentioned earlier were also very popular. So the ones we've got, I've purchased via eBay over the years, and good value, I believe. But
fantastic.
Yes, we need more young people, obviously.
Here. Thanks, Peter.
Oh, there we go. Hi there.
Yeah.
I think we're on. Yeah. One of the things that I've observed with getting people into the hobby, particularly youth, is balance in a radio club and radio groups. This is something we've seen in VK3, and kind of a mantra that I've always had in my own mind and had repeated to others is that it's the technical aspects that attract people, but it's the social aspects that make them stay. And if you have one without the other, you will fail. If it's a pure, pristine technical environment, it'll be interesting for about 2 minutes. But if it's a pure social environment, people will just see a cliquey group standing around talking about old times. Whenever you put something together in any group, club, large or small, that 50-50 balance seems to make the difference between success and failure. Get your technical aspects as the magnet and the social aspects behind it to make people stay.
Fantastic. Spot on.
Oh, just a comment, Justin. Amateur Radio Victoria has been in receipt of some considerable amount of money with a rider on it that it has to be expended in support of development of youth in amateur radio. And ARVIC has now 2 people who are going to run under that imprimatur, and I guess you'll hear more about that as time goes on. But it's a great thing that somebody has donated funds in support of that. So that hopefully that will then be a way in which we can go forward in Victoria and perhaps Australia.
Fantastic initiative.